The history of early Christianity is a rich and complex tapestry of theological development, religious practices, and mystical experiences. Among the myriad texts that have shaped Christian tradition, there exists a shadowy category of books that were highly influential yet remained largely forgotten or suppressed over time. These texts often diverged from the mainstream doctrinal path charted by the early church and offered a glimpse into the more mystical, esoteric aspects of the faith. One such book, sometimes referred to as the forgotten mystical book of early Christianity, remains an enigmatic yet significant artifact in the understanding of the spiritual undercurrents of the early Christian world. Mysticism in the early Christian period was a deeply personal and experiential aspect of faith, emphasizing direct communion with God, the transformative power of the Holy Spirit, and the inner, spiritual journey of the believer. Christianity, as it emerged from its Jewish roots, carried forward a mystical tradition that was seen in the ecstatic experiences of the prophets, the visions of the Old Testament, and the promises of divine intimacy that Jesus Christ extended to his followers. Early Christian mysticism was not merely about understanding abstract theological concepts, it was about experiencing the divine in profound and life-altering ways. The mystical dimension of Christianity was not easily contained by the formal theological frameworks that began to dominate the Church in the centuries following the death of Christ. The development of early Christian doctrine, including the formation of the New Testament canon, was marked by intense debates over which texts best represented the Orthodox Christian faith. At the same time, other texts that were considered heretical or apocryphal were excluded from the canon and often destroyed or lost. Perhaps the most famous group of early Christian writings that were marginalized or forgotten are the Gnostic Gospels. These texts, discovered in the mid-20th century in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, offer a radically different view of Christian spirituality compared to the canonical Gospels. The Gnostics, whose beliefs and practices emphasized esoteric knowledge, gnosis, as the path to salvation, were deeply mystical in nature. Their writings often focused on direct, experiential knowledge of God and the universe, in contrast to the more institutionalized teachings of the early Church. One of the most well-known of these Gnostic texts is the Gospel of Thomas, a collection of sayings attributed to Jesus. In contrast to the canonical Gospels, which focus on narrative accounts of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, the Gospel of Thomas consists primarily of cryptic sayings that emphasize personal spiritual enlightenment and the discovery of the divine within. For example, one of the sayings from the Gospel of Thomas states, "When you make the two one, and when you make the inside like the outside and the outside like the inside, and the above like the below, then you will enter the kingdom."